Hey, what's up, guys? There's a couple of things we gotta talk about here, and I'll explain what this is. Yes, you're seeing Xbox One S, and then you're seeing PlayStation 4 Pro. Now, the reason being you're seeing these two consoles being put on my camera, it's because there's a couple of things I have to mention. Number one, PlayStation 4 Pro and Xbox One S shouldn't even be compared. I think I already made that video. I made that clear. There shouldn't be really any comparison between the two because one, it technically Pro, it's more powerful than the Xbox One S. That's not to say that Xbox One S, it's not a good console. It's a great console. Just technically cannot output that power that PlayStation 4 Pro can do. And I'll explain what I'm talking about. All right, I'll explain a couple of things. In this video, this will be a long video. On this video, we'll talk about high dynamic range and the difference between different types of high dynamic range TVs and why they're all so different, and the confusion that some people have been getting about HDR, Dolby Vision, because I know for some of you this is a new thing, just like it was for me 3 months ago before I started doing some research and learning. But I'll try to do my best to explain all of this in a 40-minute video. Okay, but first let's start with the Samsung KS8000. The reason I'm showing you this TV, this is a 65-inch Samsung KS8000. The reason I'm showing you this TV is because this TV, it's a full HDR 10 experience. Now, what does he mean by that? By the way, the movie that's playing right now, it's the Avengers on Stars. Now, what does he mean by that? What does he mean by full experience HDR 10? Well, here, let me explain first of all. Okay, what is the high dynamic range? High dynamic range is not something new. It's not something that, oh my God, eureka, somebody discovered HDR. High dynamic range has been used in professional cameras, been used on Canon cameras, various different types of cameras out there, been used on cell phones, standard HDR, that is, high dynamic range. And what does the high dynamic range means? High dynamic range means spectrum of colors and a higher contrast and brightness, which makes the screen looks more vivid, gives you more depth in a screen. All right, so that's what the standard high dynamic range was for the photos. When you take a photo of this lamp, for example, this lamp will look more dynamic, and that's what you want to do. Okay, so I'm just giving you, it's not a great example, but you guys catch my drift of what I'm trying to tell you. Now, the reason I'm showing this TV is because I earlier just mentioned it supports full high dynamic range 10. Now, what do you mean by full? Well, here, let me explain. This TV comes equipped with full 1000 nits, which is the maximum that HDR 10 can produce. What are the nits? The nits basically is the contrast ratio on the brightness and contrast that emits those wide color spectrum. When I talk about wide color spectrum, I'm talking about this diagonal throughout the whole screen. Okay, from one edge to the other edge. Okay, wide color spectrum of 1000 nits, it's being emitted with a higher brightness and a higher contrast, so that way the colors pop. The dark, deep black levels pop. All of that stuff looks more natural, okay? So that's what that means. Now, some TVs, here, let me put it over here next to my PlayStation 4 Pro. Some TVs, they come in with not full 1000 nits. Some of them, they come in with 800 nits, 750 nits, okay? But this one comes in with 1000 nits. So that's why when you go out there and buy a TV, you got to look and see, okay, this TV, it's only 800 or 700, but it has HDR. Oh, wait a minute, hold on a second. Why so cheap? Well, there's a reason why it's so cheap, because it's not using the full nits of HDR. Okay, it's not a full HDR experience, so therefore you're going to be missing that true high dynamic range experience, and that's why it's cheap. Also, you have to look and see, okay, what's the panel, what's the technology inside the panel, what else does it have? Okay, not only does this TV has a high-end premium HDR 10 full experience, but at the same time this TV has a quantum dot emitting coloring in the back of the panel. Gives you that variety range of color spectrum too. So not only are you getting the full HDR 10 experience, but you're also getting quantum dot emitting light in the panel that gives you billions of different types of colors that pop out and makes the screen look even more vivid with HDR. So on top of the HDR 10, you're getting that quantum dot. Okay, and also this TV has a very deep, dark black levels on the screen. So the ratio is going to be perfect on those deep black levels. So when you add all of that technology on that TV, it makes 4K resolution with HDR look even better. It gives you the full experience of 4K. That's why they call it Super UHD TV. All right, now when you go for something cheaper and has an HDR stapled on there, you're going to get that maybe 800 to 700 nits. That's not to say it's bad. I mean, it's not bad. You still get a little bit of that HDR experience, but it's not a full HDR experience, okay? So there's different types of HDR out there, guys, that you have to do your research and truly understand the difference. The guy at the Magnolia or the person at the Best Buy or whoever, it's just going to try to sell you the TV. They don't care. They just want to make sure they sell you the product. Like any salesman, he just wants to sell. He doesn't care really what's technology in there. If you're stupid enough to buy it, he's going to sell it to you, okay? But once they realize you're smart about it, he might even go to another customer and have someone else help you, okay? But that's just the business. That's just the way the sales is, man, okay? They work on the commission. They got to sell products. That's how it is. Now, let's take Dolby Vision now. Remember how I said I put Dolby Vision, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I didn't even mention Dolby Vision. The reason I didn't mention Dolby Vision and I put it aside, it's because Dolby Vision, it's a new technology. Currently, HDR 10, it's being put into a standard for gaming and programming, movies, stuff like that. So HDR 10 right now is being standard. Dolby Vision, it's something that it's down the road, down the future. Okay, so for you to be purchasing a Dolby Vision TV and spending all that money, I mean, if you have the money, go ahead and buy it, and be future-proof for 3 or 4 years or whatever, 5 years, go ahead and do that. But just remember, you're not going to be able to experience that Dolby Vision till maybe late 2018 or early 2019. That's just a fact, okay? I have my sources, I know. So you don't want to spend that kind of money. Now, is Dolby Vision better than HDR? Well, of course, yes. Technically, yes, because it has 10,000 nits, much better brightness and contrast ratio. The color is going to look even more emitting naturally. They're not going to bleed. I mean, they're going to be perfect. And it's going to look phenomenal, especially if you're going to be running an OLED 8K or 4K TV, especially if you're going to be running the Dolby Vision on 8K OLED TV or Quantum LED TV whenever Samsung decides to roll them out. But OLED, I think it's starting to pick up now. Sony announced they're going to be running their OLED pretty soon, so we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting year, guys. It's a neck to neck. You can't compete with technology. It's always something new coming out each year. Okay, so Dolby Vision, I would wait for it. Right now, there's no reason for you to spend that kind of cash. because there's no way of you experiencing Dolby Vision unless there's a demo disc somebody gave you, and okay, you're gonna watch a demo disc for 15 minutes and just enjoy it and drool yourself. But right now, at the moment, there is no Dolby Vision programming. And I know someone says maybe Netflix. Not that I know of. Not that I know of. Supposedly Netflix will be doing Dolby Vision, but I haven't seen anything. Some people are saying Marco Polo, but I haven't seen it. I even spoke to some of my sources at Magnolia. They say they don't know. They don't think so. But the only thing they know it's HDR10 right now. You guys have to realize, for Netflix to be doing that kind of a programming, Dolby Vision, it's going to take a lot of bandwidth on their server to and for your internet, you're going to have some really fast internet connection, man, to take advantage of Dolby Vision 4K. I mean, you got to remember, your internet bill will be sky high, man, okay? That shit takes a lot of, bandwidth. But the best way to experience HDR or Dolby Vision is going to be direct source. Obviously, I'm talking about a 4K UHD Blu-ray player. Anything that's direct source, native, it's better than you streaming something. That's just the bottom line. All right, so let's talk about PlayStation 4 Pro and then Xbox One S. That's what I started earlier in the video. And the reason I want to talk about them is because I've been getting a lot of comments on my videos about PlayStation 4 Pro and Xbox One S HDR, and then even PlayStation 4 Slim HDR. Yes, PlayStation 4 Slim supports HDR, but the problem is, you're not getting that full HDR experience, and I'll explain why. Because PlayStation 4 Slim and Xbox One S, they can only output 1080p native source upscale to 4K with HDR. And that's where you lose that full HDR experience. Sure, HDR effect will take some effect to it. You'll see a little bit of color pop out here and there. You'll see a little bit of HDR, okay? But you're not going to see that full spectrum of nits of HDR that you should experience. The reason why is because HDR works best with high resolution, okay? The two work best with high resolution. The high resolution, and if you can't output the native 4K resolution, it works the best. Native 4K is recommended with HDR. That's why they use it with the 4K Blu-ray players, because it's outputting that 4K native resolution. I know that the movies are being shot in 2K and then remastered to 4K. I get it, upscale to 4K, but still, you're getting a native 4K remaster with HDR and looks better. Granted, with consoles, with PlayStation 4 Slim and Xbox One S, it's a little bit different. Sure, Gears of War 4 looks nice when I turn on the HDR, but I notice that the colors don't pop out as if when I'm playing NBA 2K17 here. Okay, right here. When I'm playing NBA 2K17, okay, or when I'm playing The Last Guardian, the colors don't pop out vividly as opposed to something that's 1080p upscale. When you're upscaling something that's 1080p, and in some cases, Xbox One can only output 1080p. You cannot go any further than 1080p. And there's some games out there, they don't even support 1080p. They support 900p. Now, think about that. 900p upscale to 4K. It's not going to look that good, guys, with HDR. It's just, you're still going to see that HDR a little bit, but it's not going to look the way it should look. It's not going to look that great. There's going to be that blurriness going on because you're using a lower resolution, 900p upscale to 4K. All right? There's a reason why they're using a higher resolution on PlayStation 4 Pro to take the advantage of high dynamic range. And that's why certain games look better on PlayStation 4 Pro, because of the higher resolution, higher dynamic resolution, upscale to 4K with HDR. Especially certain games that are running on native 4K like NBA 2K17 HDR, Skyrim 5, HDR, native 4K, FIFA 17. Now, FIFA 17 is native 4K, but they don't have HDR. So, native, the higher resolution, the better the HDR is going to look. And on top of that, let's keep in mind that PlayStation 4 Pro has that 4 teraflops. You know, Xbox One S only has like 1.2 teraflops, whatever, something like that. So it's just not that strong enough, not that powerful enough to compete with PlayStation 4 Pro. And I'm not trying to diss Xbox One S. I'm not trying to say Xbox One S sucks. It doesn't suck. It's a great console. But we shouldn't compare Xbox One S with PlayStation 4 Pro. It's ridiculous, man. And I mean, granted, Xbox One S has a 4K UHD player. That's a big bonus. I get it. But this console right here, PlayStation 4 Pro, it just has more power, and it's able to output higher resolution. To me, that's a bonus. That helps, man. The higher resolution helps with HDR, because with a high resolution, HDR looks the best. That's how it was intended. It was intended. HDR, it's intended to be used with high resolution and possibly 4K native if you can. All right, so that's what I really wanted to cover here. I really wanted to explain a couple of things to people, that there's different types of HDR TVs. This is why I recommend Samsung KS8000. It's not because I'm a fanboy. I'm not a fanboy of anything. I did my research. I almost bought Sony XBR 805. I almost bought Sony. But then I spoke to my friend Lucky at Magnolia. I did some research. I contacted some people on YouTube who also have a lot of experience with TVs, more than me. For years, they've been buying 4K TVs. They told me, come on, man, don't go with Sony. And look, there's nothing wrong with Sony. You're not going to go wrong if you buy a 65-inch Sony XBR 805. You're still going to get that HDR experience, but with a little bit lower nits, okay? All right, I mean, there's things that Sony has. It's a great X1 upscaler chip that will make your existing DVDs and content look a little bit better, but it's missing other features. It's missing the 1000 nit HDR full experience, and it's missing that quantum dot coloring that this TV has, okay? And on top of that, this TV, it's very thin, and it has that one connect, which is right here. It has that one connect HDMI plug-in, and all of these HDMI ports are 4K 60 HDR capable, so it doesn't matter. You can connect 4 HDR devices. It's gonna work fine. All right, and that's why I recommended this TV, you know. So the bottom line is, guys, you have to, by the way, that's my sound bar right there. That's the 42-inch sound bar from Vizio. Look, guys, that's the reason why I always tell you, do your research. 3 months ago, when I first started this channel, I didn't know shit about 4K TV. You know, I made a lot of mistakes. I made a bunch of mistakes. But I learned, you know, I started doing my research. I hooked up with some people at Magnolia. I started spending some time in Magnolia and you know, doing my research, comparing the TVs. I met some people on YouTube, getting feedback from them, doing my research online. You know, it took me 3.5 months to kind of get the idea of the difference between high dynamic range TVs, what the nits are, what do they mean by full spectrum color, you know, why they call it Y color gamut, all of these different types of things I started learning about, okay? I started learning about quantum dot coloring that's being emitted behind the panel right here. And what does that do? Why is it getting so many colors? And what's inside that quantum dot little crystals that are inside, they're producing, emitting that coloring. So I started learning about all that different types of things. And then I started learning about Dolby Vision. Okay, checking out some TVs and Magnolia, the new the Vizio P series. There was a little demo they showed. And the guy explained to me about the nits and why the Dolby Vision has a higher nits, therefore giving you true lifelike natural colors. You know what I mean? But he says this works the best with OLED LG. Then he compared it to me with LG OLED, and with LG OLED, Dolby Vision just looks fucking fantastic. I mean, it's as real as it fucking gets. That's why I use the F word, because it looks that fucking good. Okay, end of story. It's going to be neck to neck with OLED and QLED next year, man. This is going to be a fight. But this is a good thing that there's going to be a competition next year, because that means the LG is going to cut some prices. You'll be able to get a 55-inch lower end E series. I don't know which series they have. The lower end series for $1,500. Right now, that series, it's $2,200, $2,000. But it's going to drop down to $1,500 during spring. So when you get your tax returns, you can go get yourself a OLED LG Dolby Vision HDR TV, and then you can be set for another 4 or 5 years, which that's a great price for 55-inch. If you want to go to 65-inch, you're going to have, look, anything that's a higher 65-inch, you're going to have to pay a higher price. You're going to have to pay $2,000 for OLED 65-inch. But 55-inch for OLED should be okay, honestly. But if you want to go with 65, you'll be able to get a 65-inch OLED for $2,000. Probably March Madness sales or whatever they have during the spring. That's just what I'm getting from my sources, okay? That's how these prices fluctuate. They have to sell the TVs. They have to compete with the other companies. It's a competition constantly. These brands, all these different types of brands, competition war, it's happening as we speak constantly, all the time. There's always competition. That's how these companies works. Okay. Now, having said that, what should you do? Should you wait for OLED? Yeah, I mean, if you want to wait for OLED, I say wait for OLED. But you got to remember, there's other issues and problems with the OLED right now. Okay, you have to ask yourself, what are you buying that TV for? Okay, what are you buying that OLED? Are you just buying it for movies? If that's going to be your thing and all you're going to do is watch movies on that OLED, then I say go ahead. But if you want to be more balanced and play video games on it, be prepared that there's going to be some lag. 48 milliseconds input lag response time on the LG OLED TVs. They said they're going to fix that issue, but honestly, I don't know when that's going to happen. If LG can fix that issue and drop it down to like 20 or 28 milliseconds, then that's fine. But I haven't heard anything from LG OLED. So you guys have to do your research, man. And you have to understand the basics of HDR. What is HDR? We all understand the meaning. What it stands for is high dynamic range. But what is that high dynamic range? Don't just memorize the word high dynamic range. You have to understand why they call it high dynamic range. Okay, a lot of people, they just memorize certain things and they act like they know what it is. You should never do that. You shouldn't just memorize certain things so that way you can act smart. But you don't know the technology behind that, on what it means. Okay, what is the quantum LEDs? Okay, what's OLED? What's the OLED stands for? Okay, we all understand the meaning of it. It's OLED. But what does it stands for? You got to learn about it. Okay, it's organic LED lights. They're organic lights. They're emitting by themselves. Okay, there's no backlit that supports them. Okay, they're natural, organic lights. They're emitting that screen. So you guys have to learn about these things, man. Same thing with HDR. Why they call it wide-color gamut? Well, think about, you got 8 million colors popping out across the spectrum of the screen. Of course, the screen's going to look better. And imagine that 1,000 nits of ratio on the contrast and brightness. They're going to make those color pop even more. And then you add a true native 4K resolution on top of that with 8 million pixels. And guess what you have? You got yourself a really good, nice 4K experience. All of these things, man, you guys will have to learn. Don't just remember the nits. Okay, what does the nits stand for? You have to learn about the NYTS, nits. What is the nits? What does it mean? Google it, research it, or go to Barnes and Nobles. Buy a book about this stuff, about the home theater, about the TV, about the 4K, or Google it. You know, so for me to end this video, I know it's kind of half-assed video. I'm holding it with one camera, with one hand, but I just want to clarify a couple of things. The difference between HDR TVs and the difference between PlayStation 4 Pro HDR and Xbox One S HDR and PlayStation 4 Slim HDR. Yes, they all support HDR, but there's a difference. There's a difference, just like there's a difference on different lower-end HDR TVs. And you guys got to learn this, man. You guys got to keep up with this stuff. Because if you don't keep up with this, some sales rep over there is going to rip your pockets off. Okay? And you got to do your research, guys. That's why I do this. That's why I started this channel at first, you know. And I made some mistake and I started learning. Now I gain a hell of a lot more knowledge. 3.5 months now. I'm still not claiming I'm professional. I'm not. But I have gained a lot of knowledge now to know about the HDR and 4K and what it does. Okay? And I spent a lot of time in Magnolia, man. Like I said, I wish that I could go Magnolia and record some of these things and show it to you. But I can't because it's a conflict of interest. Magnolia has a partnership at all these different brands. Sony, Samsung, Panasonic, Vizio, LG. Okay? Therefore, they cannot have me doing a review on these TVs because that would create a conflict of interest. The only way I can do a review on a TV is if I buy it. I purchase it and then, okay, let's compare LG OLED with Samsung. Or let's compare Sony XBR with Samsung. But you don't have to take my word for it. You can go to ratings.com. You can go to Digital Trends. There's AVS forums. There's many other outlets out there. They're allowed to do this, and they can do it. Me, I can't at the moment. I would have to have some kind of a partnership with these brands, and there probably have to be a certain protocol how I do the review and stuff like that. That's just the way business is. But take my word for it. I've spent 3.5 months at Magnolia with my friend Lucky. That's his nickname, Lucky. It's not his real name. But he have showed me all these TVs side by side, man. 75-inch, 78-inch. Fuck, even one was like 108-inch, 88-inch. You name it. I've seen the curved, not curved, flat, all different types of bezels, different types of TVs. I put them all aside next to each other and I compared them. We watched the Martian and various other 4K UHD content. And the truth is, they're all good, but they're all different because they all come with different features. And you got to learn about these different types of features and ask yourself, what type of TV do I want? And how much do I want to spend? You know what I mean? So do your research. Like I said, do your research. I do research all the time. You know, don't just memorize something so you can act like you're smart. Don't memorize it. You're memorizing something without even knowing what it does. That would be like me memorizing, hey, I know about a carburetor. And then mechanic's going to ask me, okay, tell me in detail, what does the carburetor does? What's the mixtures inside a carburetor? Oh, what do you mean mixtures? You see, or what does the fuel injection does to a car? You know, you gotta know the meaning of that word. What does that mean? What does it do? What does the carburetor do? Now, some new cars, they don't use carburetors, they use different technology. But I'm just using this as a one analogy example. You got to learn what it does. Okay, you got to learn what the quantum dot coloring does. You got to learn about a 4K, how many millions of pixels it has. It has 8 million. Okay. You got to learn about all these different types of things. And you can learn. You can learn all this stuff. You just have to spend some time and put the effort and learn it. That's it. All right, guys. I know you're going to dislike this video anyway, but I don't care. I'm just trying. Look, I do this to help you guys. If I didn't want to help you, if I just wanted to do a clickbait video, I would keep capital letters. I'm deleting my channel with 50 million. Okay, that's if I want to do a clickbait video. All right, I don't do that. I don't clickbait. I don't do none of that shit. I'm just here to help you. Yes, I'm not keeping any secrets. I do monetize these videos because I need that money. And I'm being honest. I don't care if you like it or not. I do need that money, so I'm being honest. I'm not going to pretend that I don't when I do. But I always been honest with you. I always told you I monetize my videos. I'm not holding any fucking secrets, unlike some other YouTubers out there that just like to pretend they don't. Me, I do. But I don't beg you for it, do I? I don't tell you click here, click there, follow me here, follow me there, because it really helps me out. I don't do none of that shit. I'm here trying to give you guys the best possible calibration for your TVs, and I'm also trying to help you. So that way, when you go out there buy a TV, you don't end up being disappointed. I know that's the worst feeling, right? You go out there, you buy a freaking TV, and you're like disappointed. Ah, fuck. And you feel like shit all day long. I know that feeling. I've been there. Okay, I know. I'm a human being too, man. I know how you guys feel. I know the jealousy. I know that shitty feeling in your stomach when something doesn't work and you feel ripped off and you feel angry. I get it, man. I'm a human being too. Okay, I'm not made of steel and wires. I'm just here trying to help you. And I know you guys are going to dislike this video anyway because I'm using one camera, holding it, and I'm showing you PlayStation 4 Pro and a little bit of this, you know. Look, even this movie on HDR Plus mode looks great on stars. And I'm using Xfinity 1080p. It's not a true 1080p. Guys, they're lying. It's 1080i being upscaled to 1080p, okay? Because Xfinity is not going to spend that kind of money, Comcast, to have all of these programs running at that high resolution, okay? But there you go. Even with upscale to 1080p, this looks great. With quantum dot coloring and HDR plus. So that's the beauty of this TV. This TV will make even this program look great. Okay? All right, guys. So that's all I had for 32, 33. I said 40, but I cut it down to 33 minutes. Again, look, I do this to help you guys. And that's why I do these videos, man. I don't do clickbait. If I wanted to do a clickbait, I can do that all day long, every day, and just rip you guys off and just have you click on my videos. But that's not me. I have my principles, man. I try to be honest with you. Even though some of you disagree with me, but that's okay. We all have a difference of opinion. That's all right. You know. All right, guys. Have a good one. Take care. Oh, and happy holidays. Enjoy your holidays.